Ladies and gentlemen, hear this truth today. God is going to change your life forever, not just for a season, but for eternity. He is not a God who offers temporary fixes. He is a God who transforms, renews, and sets you on a path that leads to greatness. God is not a distant force, watching the events of your life unfold from afar. No, God is present. He is here right now, in the midst of your struggles, your pain, your triumphs, and your moments of uncertainty. His power is not something that operates solely in the heavens. It is an active force that moves in the affairs of your life in ways that often defy human understanding. There is no circumstance too difficult, no situation too hopeless that God cannot change. His ability to shift the course of your life, to turn your trials into triumphs, is beyond anything you could ever imagine. When we look at the challenges we face in life, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. We see obstacles that seem insurmountable, and we begin to believe that there is no way forward. But I am here to tell you that God is ready to intervene in your life. He is not just a passive observer. He is an active participant in your journey, constantly working behind the scenes to bring about His divine plan for you. This is the beauty of divine intervention. It doesn't just happen when we are at our best, but also when we are at our lowest. God steps into our struggles, not only to help us, but to show us the depth of His power and love. You might not always see Him at work, but that doesn't mean He isn't moving. Just because your circumstances remain unchanged in the natural world doesn't mean that God isn't working on a supernatural level. Sometimes the most powerful changes begin on the inside, before they are ever visible on the outside. Transformation begins in the heart. And when your heart aligns with God's will, you open the door for His divine power to begin moving in your life. One of the most significant things we must understand is that God's power is not limited by the laws of nature, by the boundaries of time, or by the confines of human understanding. The things that seem impossible to us are never impossible to God. The roadblocks you face, the closed doors, and the obstacles in your way are not beyond His ability to remove or transform. God does not need permission from anyone or anything to change your life. His power is not dependent on the circumstances around you. It is dependent on your willingness to trust in His sovereignty and believe that He is capable of doing the unimaginable. Now here's the key. God's intervention requires faith. It requires you to believe that He is able to do what He has promised to do. You see, God operates in the realm of faith. When you align your heart and your mind with His word, you create an environment for His intervention. Faith is not merely about believing in a general sense that God exists. It is about believing that God is involved in your personal situation and that He is capable of turning things around. Without faith, it is impossible to please God, but with faith, all things become possible. God is asking you today, will you trust in His power to intervene in your life? Will you take a step of faith even when the path ahead seems unclear? It's easy to become discouraged when things don't change overnight. But remember, God's timing is perfect. The things He does in your life may not always align with your immediate desires, but they will always align with His perfect plan for you. What may look like a setback could actually be a setup for something far greater than you could ever imagine. When you surrender to God's plan, you open yourself to a transformation that will change you from the inside out. This isn't just about overcoming external obstacles. It's about internal growth. The circumstances that seem so overwhelming today will become the testimonies of tomorrow. In today, it may not be so immediate. It's not to be taken lightly, man. This philosophy applies to every form of life to support you in all its phases and better equip you to adapt to any of them. You look back and see that God was at work all along, refining you, shaping you, and preparing you for something far beyond what you could have planned for yourself. This is not a passive waiting for God to act. It's an active faith that expects Him to show up. And when you begin to expect His intervention, your life starts to change. Your mindset shifts. You no longer see problems as roadblocks, but as opportunities for God's power to be demonstrated. The more you trust in His ability to move in your life, the more you will see Him work in ways that surpass your expectations. You see, the power of divine intervention is not just about God showing up to fix problems. It's about God revealing himself to you in ways that lead you to a deeper understanding of his love, his power, and his faithfulness. When you experience God's intervention in your life, it changes everything. You begin to walk with a new confidence, knowing that no matter what life throws at you, you serve a God who is greater, a God who is able, and a God who is always present, working on your behalf. Awakening is not distant. It is almost always powerful, and it changes reality even beyond your notion. And this is the beauty of divine intervention. When God intervenes, it is not just a temporary fix, but a permanent change. When God steps into your life, he doesn't just rearrange the pieces, he transforms the whole picture. He is not in the business of doing surface-level work. He is in the business of making you whole. The life you once knew will never be the same again. The change God brings is profound, lasting, and life-altering. It is a change that will ripple through every area of your life, and it will change you forever. God is not a distant God. He is a God who is near, ready and willing to intervene in your life in ways you never thought possible. All it takes is your faith and willingness to trust in his divine plan. When you do, you will experience a transformation that will not only change your circumstances, but will change your very life forever. Before you were even formed in your mother's womb, God knew you. He saw your potential, your purpose, and he set you apart for a divine assignment that only you can fulfill. Your life is not a random series of events. It is a carefully designed journey, orchestrated by a creator who has a plan for you, one that is full of purpose, significance, and eternal impact. The change that is coming into your life is not by chance. It is not an accident. It is part of a greater divine purpose that has been set in motion since before time began. God didn't create you just to exist. He created you to make a difference. Your life has a unique calling that is tied to the very reason you were born. When God changes your life, he does so with this purpose in mind. He is aligning you with your divine destiny, transforming you into the person you were always meant to be. Every step you take, every challenge you face, is a part of his perfect plan to refine you, to position you, and to equip you for the work that he has called you to do. Understand this. Change is always purposeful when it comes from God. When God intervenes in your life, he is not simply changing your circumstances for the sake of change. He is reshaping you, molding you, and positioning you to walk in the fullness of the calling he has placed on your life. His plans are never random or without reason. Every change that occurs in your life is designed to move you closer to the person he intended you to become. You may be looking at the difficulties you're facing and wondering how they fit into God's plan for you. Perhaps you've experienced setbacks, disappointments, or seasons of struggle that left you questioning the direction of your life. But I want to remind you today that God's purposes are not thwarted by your problems. He is not surprised by the challenges you face. In fact, he uses them as part of the process of aligning you with your destiny. Every obstacle you encounter is a tool in the hands of the master sculptor, shaping and refining you to fit his plan. The key to understanding this process is to recognize that your destiny is tied to your transformation. The person you are becoming is the person God has always known you to be. The changes that are taking place in your life are not arbitrary. They are steps that are leading you closer to the fulfillment of your purpose. Each day as you allow God to work in you, he is preparing you to walk into the destiny he has set before you. You are being transformed from glory to glory, from strength to strength, as you move toward the calling that has been placed on your life. God has a unique purpose for each one of us, and his plan is always in alignment with that purpose. Whether it is to inspire others, to lead, to create, to serve, or to teach, your purpose is specific to you. But in order to walk fully in your purpose, you must first understand that God is the one who determines your destiny. Your circumstances, the opinions of others, and the expectations of the world do not define your purpose. God does. And when he begins to change your life, he does so in a way that brings you closer to that divine purpose. There are no coincidences in the kingdom of God. Every encounter, every opportunity, every challenge you face is a part of his divine plan to reveal your purpose. The changes you're going through right now are not just incidental. They are the very things that are preparing you for the future that God has designed for you. At the start, even when you can't see the full picture, you must trust that God is at work behind the scenes, bringing together the pieces of your life to create a masterpiece that will bring glory to His name. And here's the beautiful part. You are not alone in this process. God is with you every step of the way, guiding you, equipping you, and providing for you. He has given you everything you need to fulfill the destiny He has placed on your life. But it takes cooperation with God's will. It takes trusting in His plan even when it doesn't make sense, and walking in faith even when you can't see the end result. The more you surrender to His guidance, the more you will experience the fullness of His purpose for your life. In the moments when you feel lost, when you wonder if your life has meaning or direction, remember this. Your life is part of a greater story. Your purpose is not defined by what the world says is important. It is defined by the eternal purpose that God has for you. The changes that come into your life are not just meant to help you survive. They are meant to propel you into the fulfillment of the divine destiny that has been set before you. As you align yourself with God's purpose, you begin to see the bigger picture. You begin to realize that every moment, every challenge, every triumph is part of a grand narrative that is unfolding. God is not just changing your life for the sake of change. He is changing your life to bring you closer to the fulfillment of your destiny, to the reason why you were created, to the person you were always meant to be. So I encourage you today, don't resist the transformation that God is working in your life. Trust that every change is purposeful. Every step is leading you closer to the person you were destined to be. God is aligning you with your divine purpose, and His plan for you is good. He is not just changing your circumstances, He is changing your life forever. And He is doing it in perfect alignment with the purpose He has called you to fulfill. God's power works in the realm of faith. It is not enough to simply believe that God exists. True faith goes far beyond acknowledging His presence. True faith is believing that God is capable of doing the extraordinary in and through your life. It's about trusting that the power of God can move mountains, tear down walls, and open doors that seem permanently closed. In the kingdom of God, faith is the key that unlocks divine power. And it is the kind of faith that has the capacity to move the impossible, the seemingly insurmountable, and the things that stand in the way of your purpose. You may look at the challenges in front of you today and think, how can I overcome this? How can I move forward when the obstacles before me are so great? Let me tell you, faith is the answer. Faith doesn't look at the size of the mountain in front of you. It looks at the size of the God who can move that mountain. When you step into a realm of faith that believes not just in God's ability, but in His willingness to act on your behalf, something shifts. You stop seeing obstacles as immovable. You begin to see them as opportunities for God's power to be revealed. Jesus Himself said, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Matthew 17:20. This isn't a metaphor, this is a truth. The power of God that is available to you works through the faith that you carry. Faith moves mountains. And when you begin to operate in that kind of faith, you begin to see things in your life move that once seemed impossible. But it's not just about having faith that God can move mountains for others. It's about having faith that He can do the extraordinary for you. In your life, in your circumstances, in your purpose. Many of us have the faith that God is capable of great things, but we struggle to believe that He can do those great things in our own lives. It's one thing to read about miracles and transformations in the Bible, but it's another thing entirely to believe that those same miracles and transformations can happen in your life, here and now. When you begin to believe that God is not just the God of miracles, but your God of miracles, your faith takes on a new dimension. Your faith becomes personal. It is no longer just an abstract concept or a theological idea. It becomes a living, breathing force that moves you to act. It moves you to speak to the mountains in your life, to declare that the obstacles before you have no power because the God who is with you is greater than any force that stands in your way. But what does this kind of faith look like in action? Faith that moves mountains is active faith. It is a faith that steps forward even when the path ahead is unclear. It is a faith that speaks boldly even when the world says to be quiet. It is a faith that does not retreat in the face of fear, but presses forward, knowing that God has already gone before you to prepare the way. You see, faith that moves mountains is not a passive faith. It doesn't sit back and wait for things to change. It takes action. It moves toward the things that God has promised, even when everything in the natural world tells you to turn back. When you move in faith, you are moving in alignment with God's will, and His power moves with you. The mountains that once seemed immovable will begin to crumble under the weight of your faith. But there's a deeper aspect of this faith that we need to understand. It's faith that believes in God's plan even when you don't understand the process. Sometimes God will not reveal the entire picture to you right away. He will give you a glimpse of the destination, but not always the full map. This is where faith truly comes into play. True faith trusts that God's plan is greater than what you can see, and that even when you don't understand the steps, God is still moving you toward your purpose. Faith that moves mountains is the kind of faith that continues to believe even when the circumstances don't line up. It's faith that doesn't depend on the visible. It doesn't rely on what you can see, but on what you know to be true about God. That He is faithful, that He is powerful, that He is working in your life in ways you cannot yet comprehend. In the moments when you feel like giving up, when you feel overwhelmed by the obstacles ahead of you, remember this: your faith is your weapon. Your faith is what connects you to the power of God. It is what allows you to stand firm, knowing that no matter how big the mountain, you serve a God who is bigger. Faith that moves mountains does not shrink back in fear. It moves forward in confidence, knowing that with God, all things are possible. So let your faith rise. Believe that God can do more than you've ever imagined. Believe that He can change your life in ways that go beyond your wildest dreams. Let your faith become so strong that it is impossible for anything to stand in the way of the purpose God has for you. Faith that moves mountains is faith that refuses to be stopped. It is faith that knows that every obstacle is an opportunity for God's power to be made known. When you have this kind of faith, you will begin to see things move in your life. Things that you once thought were impossible will begin to shift and align with God's perfect will. So I ask you today, what mountain is standing in your way? Speak to it with the authority that comes from your faith. Declare that the power of God is at work in your life and that nothing, absolutely nothing, will stop you from walking into the fullness of the destiny He has for you. In life, circumstances are constantly shifting. You experience highs and lows, moments of triumph and times of trial. Your emotions fluctuate, your situations change, and sometimes it feels like nothing is stable. But in the midst of all this change, there is one truth that remains unshakable. God's nature never changes. His power to transform your life, His promises and His faithfulness to you are the same yesterday, today, and forever. While the world around you may be unpredictable, God's ability to work in your life remains constant. And this is the foundation that you can stand on with confidence. When you look at the world, it's easy to get swept up in the turbulence of life. You may face difficulties that make you question your path, or you may experience seasons of uncertainty that make you feel as though everything is out of control. But through it all, God remains steady. His character is not influenced by your circumstances. He is not moved by the things that seem to be shifting and changing around you. His promises to you are sure, unyielding, and steadfast. The unchanging nature of God means that no matter what changes in your life, He remains the same. His love for you is unwavering. His power to redeem, restore, and transform is limitless. When you feel weak, He remains strong. When you feel uncertain, He remains your sure foundation. When you face obstacles, He is the God who moves mountains. His ability to work in your life is not dependent on the conditions around you, but on His unchanging nature. God's promises to you are just as reliable as His nature. When He says something, you can trust that it will come to pass. Unlike humans who may change their minds, break promises, or fail to deliver on their commitments, God is perfect in His consistency. He has never failed, and He never will. His promises are not conditional on your performance, your abilities, or the circumstances surrounding you. They are founded on His unchanging character. What He has spoken over your life will come to pass, regardless of the challenges or delays you may encounter. He is faithful to finish what He has started. This is where we find stability in the midst of change, when everything around you seems uncertain or out of control. You can anchor your soul in the unchanging nature of God. His promises serve as your firm foundation. You don't have to live in fear that the things He has promised you will not come to fruition. You don't have to fear that your life will remain stagnant or that you are being left behind. Whatever God has promised, He will fulfill. He will finish the work He has begun in you. When you trust in the unchanging nature of God, you begin to experience peace that transcends your circumstances. You may not always understand the how or when, but you can be certain that the what is guaranteed. God is faithful to His word, and His timing is always perfect. You don't have to worry about the future, because the same God who holds the future also holds you. His ability to transform your life does not fluctuate with the seasons of life. Whether you are in a season of abundance or a season of lack, His power to bring change remains the same. Sometimes you may find yourself in the midst of a struggle, asking, why is this happening? Why does it seem like nothing is changing? In those moments, remember that God's unchanging nature means He is still at work, even if you cannot see the full picture yet. Trust that the process you are in is part of His plan. His methods may differ from your expectations, but His purpose is always good, and He will not leave you halfway. His promises to you are a firm foundation that will carry you through the storms of life. As you walk through life, knowing that God is unchanging gives you a sense of security. You can approach every challenge with the confidence that God is the same, and He will never fail you. His faithfulness is not dependent on your performance or on the shifting winds of your circumstances. He is consistent in His love, in His mercy, and in His ability to transform your life. Even in times of waiting, when things seem stagnant or when answers seem delayed, God's faithfulness does not change. In the waiting, God is still at work, refining you, preparing you, and positioning you for the next step. His timing is perfect, and He will bring His promises to pass in your life at the right time. The waiting is not wasted. It is part of His unchanging plan to bring transformation and fulfillment to your destiny. So today, whatever you may be facing, anchor yourself in the unchanging nature of God. Remember that His promises are not like human promises. They are certain and unshakable. He will never leave you or forsake you. Whatever God begins in your life, He will finish. You can trust that the work He started in you will be completed and that the transformation He is bringing about is in perfect alignment with His eternal plan. Your circumstances may change, but God's ability to transform your life remains constant. And in that unchanging truth, you can find your peace, your hope, and your strength. Transformation is a process, and it is one that requires patience, persistence, and trust in God's timing. When we desire change, especially the kind of deep, life-altering transformation that only God can bring, it's easy to want instant results. We want to see our circumstances shift quickly and for our struggles to vanish in an instant. But the truth is, the change God brings is not always immediate, though it is inevitable. God is not interested in quick fixes or temporary changes. He is committed to working in your life in such a way that the transformation He brings is lasting, profound, and rooted in His perfect will. You may find yourself in a season of waiting, asking why things are taking so long, or feeling frustrated that the change you've been praying for hasn't happened overnight. It's important to remember that transformation doesn't happen all at once. Just as it takes time for a seed to grow into a mighty tree, it takes time for God to cultivate and mature the changes in your life. God works in seasons, and transformation unfolds in layers. Each step, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem in the moment, is leading you closer to the person He is calling you to be. The beauty of this process is that it's never about the speed of transformation, but the depth and authenticity of it. When God begins a work in your life, He doesn't just want to change your circumstances. He wants to change you from the inside out. The work He does in you is not just for the external. It's about reshaping your heart, your mind, your character, and your spirit to reflect His image more fully. This is why transformation is a process. It takes time to fully become who God has created you to be. You might not see the changes right away, but that doesn't mean they aren't happening. God is always at work in you, even in the unseen moments. The little steps you take today, the small acts of obedience, the moments of growth you experience, are all part of God's plan to bring you into your full potential. Transformation requires trust in God's process. It requires surrendering to His timing and recognizing that He knows what's best for you. It's about learning to lean on Him every day, allowing Him to guide you, and being faithful in the small things while He works His plan. Sometimes, transformation requires going through seasons of testing and refinement. You may face challenges, difficulties, or situations that stretch you in ways you never expected. These are the moments when God is refining your character, building your resilience, and preparing you for the greater things He has ahead. Just as gold is purified through fire, your faith is refined through trials. Each challenge you face is not there to break you, but to mold you into something stronger, more faithful, and more aligned with God's purpose. It is also important to understand that God's timing is perfect, and He works on His schedule, not ours. While we may be impatient and eager for change, God sees the bigger picture. He knows the right timing for everything, and He is orchestrating your transformation in ways you cannot always see or understand. Trusting His timing means understanding that He will bring the right change at the right time. Even if you can't see it now, God is laying the foundation for something greater. His plan for your life is unfolding step by step, and each moment, each season is necessary for you to become the person He has called you to be. Remember that transformation is not about perfection. It's about progress. God is not asking for you to be perfect today. He is asking for you to be faithful, to take one step forward at a time, and to trust that He is working in your life in ways that you may not fully comprehend. The beauty of transformation is that it doesn't require perfection. It just requires persistence. God is more interested in your faithfulness than your perfection. He wants you to keep moving forward, even when you don't see the results right away. Transformation is also deeply personal. God is not trying to make you like anyone else. He is trying to make you the best version of yourself, the version He has always seen in you. The change He brings is not about conforming you to the patterns of the world, but about shaping you into the image of Christ. As you walk through this process, remember that each step you take is a step toward greater alignment with God's will. Every time you choose to obey, to trust, to step out in faith, you are allowing God to do a deeper work in your life. In the moments when you feel frustrated or discouraged, remind yourself that transformation is happening even when you can't see it. Trust that God is working in you and that His work is far greater than anything you can accomplish on your own. The change He is bringing is not a temporary fix, but an eternal transformation. You are being molded into the person God has destined you to be, and He is doing it with love, patience, and grace. Don't rush the process. Embrace each step, knowing that even the small, seemingly insignificant moments are part of a bigger picture. God is not in a hurry, and neither should you be. Allow Him to work in His time. Trust in His process. And know that the transformation He is bringing in your life is inevitable. You are becoming who you were always meant to be, and every step along the way is part of the beautiful journey of becoming. Living in expectation is key to experiencing lasting change in your life. It's not enough to simply desire change. You must live with an active, daily expectancy that God is doing something new in your life. Expectancy is a powerful force. It positions you to receive what God has for you and aligns your mind, heart, and actions with the understanding that His plan for you is unfolding in ways that are greater than you could ever imagine. Living in expectation is about anticipating God's movement in your life, knowing that each day holds the potential for transformation. When you wake up each morning, do you expect something great to happen? Do you wake up with the belief that God is going to move in your life today? Living with expectancy means waking up every day with the understanding that God is always at work, that He is never idle, and that His plan for you is constantly unfolding. Your circumstances may not always reflect what you expect, but living in expectation means you trust that God is moving behind the scenes, even when you can't see it. It means believing that every moment, no matter how ordinary it may seem, is an opportunity for God to reveal something new, something better, something greater than you've ever experienced before. In order to live in expectation, you must first align your mind with God's promises. Your mind must be renewed daily with the truth of His word. What you believe shapes how you live. If you believe that God is working in your life, that He is unfolding a great plan, and that He is going to do something new, your actions will reflect that belief. Your thoughts will reflect that belief. You will begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles, because your mind is filled with the expectancy of God's movement. It's easy to get caught up in the struggles of life and forget that God is still working. We become so focused on what we don't have or on what's not happening in our lives that we forget to expect what God has promised. God is always working on your behalf, and He doesn't need perfect conditions to bring about His purpose in your life. Your expectancy should be grounded in the understanding that God's plan for you is unfolding, even when it doesn't look like it, and His plan is always greater than what you could ever imagine or accomplish on your own. Living in expectation also requires aligning your heart with God's purposes. You must develop a deep inner belief that God has a plan for your life that is bigger than your current situation. It means trusting in His timing and His ways, even when they don't make sense. Your heart must be open to the new things God wants to do in your life, even when they come in unexpected forms. Sometimes we resist change because it's not what we envisioned, or because it feels uncomfortable. But when you live in expectation, you open your heart to the possibility that the change God is bringing is exactly what you need, even if it looks different from what you imagined. To align your heart with God's purposes means you must let go of your own plans and trust that His plan is better. Expectancy means letting go of fear and doubt and embracing the future with anticipation, knowing that God's plan for your life is far greater than anything you could create on your own. His ways are higher and His thoughts are deeper. When you align your heart with His, you begin to see the world through His eyes, and you begin to anticipate the incredible things He will bring about in your life. Living in expectation is not just about having hope for the future, it's also about acting in faith today. When you expect something, you prepare for it. You don't wait passively for it to happen. You take steps to align yourself with what you believe is coming. If you expect God to bring a breakthrough, you start preparing for that breakthrough today. You begin to act as if the change is already happening. You take steps of faith even when you don't see the results immediately. Living with expectancy is about stepping out in faith, knowing that God will meet you along the way. Your actions speak volumes about what you believe. If you expect God to change your life, your actions will reflect that belief. You will start making decisions that align with the transformation you are expecting. You will start speaking words of faith and hope rather than doubt and discouragement. Your actions will reflect the anticipation you have that God is working in your life, and you will begin to live as though you already have what you are expecting. When you live in expectation, you live in a place of hope and joy, knowing that no matter what happens, God is in control and His plan for your life is unfolding perfectly. Your mind, heart, and actions will align with the belief that God is doing something new every day, something greater than you can comprehend or even imagine. Every moment becomes a potential opportunity for God to reveal more of His plan for your life, and you start seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. It's time to live with an expectation that God is about to do something amazing. Expect change, expect growth, expect breakthroughs. Trust that God is working in your life every day. Know that His plan for you is unfolding, and it is greater than you could ever imagine. When you live with that expectancy, you will begin to see God move in your life in ways you never thought possible. Your future is not defined by your past or your current situation. It is defined by the limitless possibilities of God's purpose for you. Expect it, believe it, and watch as God transforms your life in ways that will exceed your wildest expectations. Beloved, let me remind you today that the change God is bringing into your life is not a fleeting moment. It is a divine transformation. It is a process that will unfold with purpose, power, and precision. Understand this. The God who created the universe, the same God who parted seas and raised the dead, is at work in your life, shaping you for a destiny that is beyond your wildest dreams. Your life is not random, nor is it subject to the whims of circumstance. God has a plan for you, a plan to give you a future filled with hope, success, and eternal significance. Every step you take, every challenge you face, is leading you closer to the fulfillment of His divine purpose for your life. And this transformation, though it may take time, is inevitable because it is grounded in the unchanging nature of God. I challenge you today to live with an expectancy. Don't wait for change to come. Live as though change is already happening. Align your heart, mind, and actions with the knowledge that God is working behind the scenes, bringing about something greater than you could ever comprehend. Your breakthrough is not a matter of if, but when. The power of divine intervention is at your disposal, and when you live in alignment with God's will, there is nothing that can stop the transformation He has ordained for you. So I say to you today, trust the process. Be faithful in the small things, for they are leading to something greater. Embrace each day with the knowledge that God is unfolding His perfect plan for you. Your life is about to be changed forever, not because of who you are, but because of who God is. And when He begins a good work in you, He will surely bring it to completion. Believe in the power of transformation. Believe in the God who can do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ask or think, for the best is yet to come.